We are so blessed, yes. Uh, so, as you know, I am retiring in June, and I guess it's just like close to dying. You review your life, you know. It goes before your eyes, you know. Uh, so, last Sunday, I was speaking at the church where I was a minister for 14 years. And it's been many years now since I was their minister. But it was good to be back in the building because I survived a building project, millions of dollars, yeah, and could reminisce about the old days. And there were some people there who remembered all those times. So, as you know, I went to participate in a memorial service for a dear friend of mine. And it was good to see good friends. And as a result of this review, as I have shared with you, I've got a stack of transcripts of talks this high. And after a while, you start to say, why am I reinventing the wheel? And I've always been one that if it's not alive and fresh in me, I don't want to do it. So I'll tell you a little secret. Charlotte, when Charlotte was here and alive, she said a previous minister, not the one right before me, but the one before her, used to download them off the internet. And I thought, well, at least this is mine. So I don't like to just read to you, but on the other hand, if I just try to do this by memory, it might not get across what I want to get across. So I have been doing a series for the month of February that I called For the Love of Self. And this is the final talk that I'm going to share with you today. Now, the first part of it gets down in the weeds, so I'm not really going to get down in the weeds, but it has to do with what is God. And I'm going to use the word God. Normally I like spirit or something else. But what is God, and where did God come from? Who invented God? You know, there are all kinds of stuff, people philosophizing about this or that. But I said I wasn't going to do this, but I am. Okay. God is divine mind. God is everything, all that there is. Particularly, I like to say, the unified field of intelligence that is everywhere present, the quantum field, if you will. And consciousness impacts this quantum field, just like our consciousness interfaces with God to co-create the experiences that we're having. So, in the beginning, God created. In the beginning, God created. Well, that wasn't enough. You know, just give it a spin and walk off. No, there was a desire, and that's divine love. There was a desire to interact with that which was created. So how could God do that? God created himself, herself, itself, a divine image. And that is the individualized expression of God that each one of us is. So God created God's self to experience the creation. But it's like anything. Once you've done something and experienced something, you never have that first-hand experience again, right? You never do. So God, wanting to have a first-hand experience, promptly made it so that we, as individualized expression of this divine presence, would forget that we are the creators. Are you with me? Okay. So that the first time we tasted food, it would be the first time, and we would say, oh, that's good, that's very good. And the first time that we would see a sunset, we would go, oh, that's great. What a good job God must have done on this particular evening. We have forgotten that we are individualized expressions of God. However, the memory of this divinity within us is still there. And that causes us to seek. and it causes us to want to know more and experience more. And most of all, we want to know our oneness with God. We want to know innately that what we believe is true. So this morning, I would like to share with you certain characteristics of the spiritual journey. Everybody wants to know, how am I doing? How am I doing, God? Am I getting there? And where is there that I'm getting to? Being from Nashville, I knew lots of songwriters. And I knew one guy says, I may not be an all-pro saint, but I'm a-getting there. And his wife would sing, he's a-getting there. We're getting there, okay? The information that I'm sharing, you may have heard before. This is not my original material for the most part. There are 5 stages, and I'm going to go slow, and I'm going to go through all these stages. They're very significant. These 5 stages of our human experience and the spiritual journey is to know ourselves, our union with God. Now, even our name, unity, and we go around saying, we're one, but we don't really know that. It's up here. It's rare that we feel it and that we know this to be the truth of our being. The 5 stages begin with the first stage. Imagine that. The first stage is innocence. Innocence. We come into this world with a certain amount of innocence. God creates us as innocent. But the thing about the stage of innocence is that we have no concept of self. We are one with everything. There's no differentiation between us and other people and our environment. We have no consciousness of a separate self. So we begin to evolve from that state of pure innocence, because if you're one with everything, what are you going to experience? It's all me, 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 me. We go into victim consciousness from innocence. Victim consciousness begins to be created as we move into the experience of not me. Whereas in innocence, everything is me, then if I experience something that causes me pain or that is distasteful, I fear, I feel frustration, and I begin to seek to avoid that experience and to draw positive experiences to myself. In victim consciousness, the central idea is life is happening to me. And often as children, we feel that way. We are powerless over some of the things that we are made to do, made to eat, made to be, even places we're made to go. Whatever it is, it feels like life is happening to us. Hopefully, we all evolve beyond this stage into the next one, but often people do get hung up here, believe it or not. I know it's hard to believe, but it happens. We get hung up in victim consciousness. There is a fight going on, and the relationship that you have with yourself is one of self-loathing. Remember a couple of weeks ago, I said you're crying in your cradle and mama doesn't come, and you think something must be wrong with me, I'm not loved anymore. Think of that. A self-loathing. It is one of negation and projected onto the world and other people in the world. So we engage in such behaviors as control, manipulation, trying to get things just the way we want so that we will feel secure. Don't you want to feel secure? There is a lot of judging and there is a lot of blaming. The devil made me do it. In order to remain in victim consciousness, there has to be a victimizer, right? So we always look into the world wanting to know who's going to do us wrong. We're looking for a persecutor. Now, I get this because my degree's in psychology. But you don't have to be a psychologist to understand. It's pure projection. Hopefully, after we have stayed in this cycle of consciousness long enough, we get to the point, as some recovery groups say, you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. You get tired of being persecuted. And you have that moment of clarity. And you think, surely I was not born for this. Surely there is a better way. Perhaps you pick up a book. Perhaps some friend takes you to a seminar. Perhaps you walk through the doors of Unity Church. Something happens and you shift into the next phase of consciousness, the next step on the spiritual journey, which is called victor consciousness. You become victorious. You become focused on overcoming all the obstacles of the past. The key phrase in this particular mode of consciousness is, life is happening by me, by my own will. I am making this happen. By my own consciousness, I am making this happen. It is by my efforts that I will overcome. It is in this phase of consciousness that we begin to learn the spiritual tools of co-creation. And if you've been around Unity for a while, you know what I'm speaking of. We begin to understand that with our thoughts, we generate feelings. And with our thoughts and feelings, we interpret the world around us. And we attract to ourselves opportunities to validate that which we decree to be true. You shall decree a thing, and it shall be so. And according to your belief will it be done unto you. Someone said that. In the first stage, meaning not innocence, but the next one, the victim, we are powerless in that stage of victimhood. But when we step into victor, empowerment is a key word. I always like to think of Helen Reddy. I am woman, hear me roar. In this stage, we all roar. We are roaring as we come into our own power to change our lives. It is essential that we learn how we create our experience. This is the stage where we learn to pray with denials and affirmations. And if you've taken any prayer classes, denials and affirmation are the foundational way that Unity people pray. We begin to feel all that has power over us in our consciousness, and all that we fear will happen to us, and all the things that can be taken from us. We begin to notice that we're thinking that, and we begin to use denials to shift that. Looking at my zero bank balance, thank God this was 23 years ago, I can affirm that I deny this zero bank balance has any power over me to know the abundance of God. And my affirmation is, for God is my abundance, revealing itself to me in this moment. Now, I worked with this stuff my whole life, guys, and I cannot tell you how grateful I am to have learned and practiced this over the years. Sickness in my body as I feel the aches and pains. I deny that this experience of discomfort has any power over me to keep me from knowing the life of God, to be free in the spirit of the life of God. So we use denials to combat the fears and affirmations to train our minds in the truth. Not to change our minds. Just to train our minds in the truth. And our lives are transformed and wonderful things do happen. And you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and then suddenly, one day, it may seem that it doesn't work anymore. All the denials and affirmations aren't creating what you envision. All of the goal setting, all of the treasure mapping, everything that you have done to no avail. And you think, my God, why have you forsaken me? I must not have enough faith. I must not be doing this right. And we begin to struggle, and that struggle often propels us into what is known as the dark night of the soul. Oh, woe is me. I used to say, when I got into this law of mind action stuff with Unity, that I was treating God like a cosmic slot machine to get what I wanted. We are totally confused until we finally get to the point where we surrender. We just surrender. And then, with that, we move into the next phase of consciousness, which is called vehicle. So we go from victim to victor to vehicle, which means you are a vehicle for the expression of God. You come into the realization that life isn't happening by me. It is not I myself that am doing this. It is the Christ within. Life is happening through me. I can recall personally in my life when this shift took place for me. I was in Unity. I'd been in Unity for several years. There had been so many healings. I'd had so many demonstrations. And I was well on my way to becoming a real estate mogul. I knew God wanted me to be prosperous, and so I chose that path. And I understood how to do it because I was a real estate agent. I was applying everything in my power to manifest that particular path. And the door began to shut, and the door began to shut, and the doors shut, and this crumbled, and that crumbled, this deal fell through, and disaster pursued until I was on my knees, literally. During those years, I declared bankruptcy. The only thing that got me through all that was Unity. I give up. And what emerged was the path to ministerial school. And this isn't in this, but I'll share with you. I remember I had a dream one night. And I was in a store, and I had my hands full of stuff in the checkout lane. And my licensed Unity teacher, who I adored, came up to me and she said, "Put that stuff down and follow me." And I said, but I can pay for it. I've got the money. I can pay for it. And she said, "It's time you got about your Father's business." And she turned and walked up the hill to Unity Village. And I followed her. Your guidance comes from many places. When I said yes to becoming a minister, the doors started opening and opening and opening. I didn't have the money to go to school. Scholarships were given to me. People were generous with me. And when they said, "Well, how much money do you have to see if I qualified for getting a scholarship?" I got $2,000. I was so proud of that. So there's a transformation when we say, not my will, but thine be done. In this vehicle stage, it's all about tuning into the guidance of God. It is using these spiritual tools that you learned how to use when you were in your victor consciousness. But instead of that being all about my good and what I want, it becomes now what God wants to manifest through me. You see, in victim consciousness, it's ego-driven. It's very ego-driven. You're in the world of duality, them and us. But when you move into victor consciousness, you're still in duality, and it's still ego-driven. But the ego has become spiritualized. And rather than focusing on negative, it is now focused on the positive. But it is still all about my demonstrations, my visions, my desires, and wants. You realize that anything that you do affects other people, and you can never be separate from other people because the human experience is basically the same. When you're afraid, and I'm afraid, fear is fear. It doesn't matter whether it's a snake in the grate, a zero balance checkbook, or anything. Fear is fear. In victim consciousness, you ask, why? Why? Why is this happening? In victim. In victor, you ask, how? How can I overcome? How can I escape this? What are the tools? And when you get to vehicle consciousness, you're asking when. When should I do this? Where should I go? And what should I be focusing my attention on? So that the more you push the envelope until you bump up against the next one. Life is happening through me. You are still in dualistic thinking. But your thinking is God and me. What a team. What a team. That's good thinking, but it's still dualistic. So you push because you're outgrowing your consciousness. And you probably will go through another dark night of the soul. Better to light a candle than curse the darkness. And I know this is long, guys, and I hope you're hanging in with me. This dark night of the soul is deep, deep, deep letting go. Because you can't do this on your own. God in me, God through me, into the next level, which is God as me. And God as me cannot take place unless all forgiveness is given. Whew. Few people get here. Because when you enter into the next level of consciousness, this is mastery. And the key phrase here is, God and I are one. Life is happening as me. And Jesus said, if you see me, you see the one who sent me. This is mastery. When you shift from doing to being, you realize there's no differentiation between that which you do and that which you are. God is your life, and you know that it is God creating for you without effort. So rather than having to focus on being positive and working the principles, in mastery, you simply allow yourself to be. And the world you see is a reflection of the divine self that you are. You come to know yourself as an expression of divine love. I'm almost finished, but the best part's coming up. This is the journey as it was laid out by the Reverend Dr. Carol Ruth Knox in Walnut Creek. She is no longer on the planet. That's another story. A brilliant, very tuned in spiritual woman. Now, we cannot bypass any of these. We cannot go from victim to master. We have to go through each particular stage, because each particular stage has its gift. And we draw on the gifts of each stage of consciousness as we evolve. Now, Dr. Knox's model stops at mastery. But I was thinking 23 years ago, you know, you hit mastery, that's just the beginning. That is just the beginning of entering into the kingdom of heaven, as Jesus called it. What must be after mastery? You know, we're always evolving. We're always pushing the envelope. So what came to me is, we must enter into the consciousness of miracles at this point. When you know that everything you are experiencing in the world is one with you and you are with it, then you know that there's unlimited potential. That must be the consciousness that Jesus spoke of when he said, "These things that I do, you shall do, and greater things than these will you do." This is a promise. So I think we're all headed for mastery and miracle consciousness. Now, how this all ties into self-love is that it's important to know the various stages of the journey so that you can come to know yourself. Jesus gave us 2 commandments. He said, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And he said, love your neighbor as yourself. Both of those commandments have to do with love. It is important to understand love consciously in your rational mind, but most importantly, to be able to shift into that experience of love, because self-love is how you love yourself, and how you love yourself is how you're going to love your neighbor. Why? Do you know the only thing you will ever know is your own experience? The only thing you will ever experience is yourself, your own consciousness. And if you look at loving God and your neighbor as yourself, you're kind of forming a trinity. Picture me as myself, and here's my neighbor, and here's God. What do you think about that? You're God. And I'm a big projector, and I'm running a film. And what my movie is going to be projected right here. However I feel about myself is projected, and whatever I think about the world and my relationship to it is projected right onto God. So I must come to know myself as love, because that's what being an individualized expression of God is. Every step of the journey, every situation, every challenge is here to teach me to love myself. My goal is to be open and receptive to the ways I'm not loving myself. And there's a lot of ways I don't love myself. I'm just not conscious of them. Or maybe I am. I am in ignorance, and we all are, until we get to the point where we are masterfully performing miracles, because that's our divine birthright to do that. So the journey into unity consciousness with God is a journey into the nature and the expression of divine love. I know this is our destiny, It is our destiny to be in that state of unity consciousness, because when we act from the realization of our unity and oneness, then we step into the consciousness that heals other people, that moves through the world as a calming presence. There is enough love in this room to shift the world if we only knew how to release and let go of the things that keep us from knowing ourselves as divine love. It is a process. Don't give up. No matter where you think you are, keep loving yourself. Keep practicing loving yourself. Find healthy ways to express that. And as you find that in yourself, you will see it in other people. Namaste.